Hello and good morning. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I got to tell you how perfectly in tune you are with this art of Europe because my Facebook is flooded with people that are going to Europe. You are speaking the street right now, Guy.
That's great. Yes, people are ready to travel again, that's for sure.
For you to do what it is that you're doing, I mean, you are a great storyteller. You've got to do it in picture. You've got to be able to do it through spoken word and just to share the community. Where does that come from inside of you? Is that the musician?
You know, I was a piano teacher. It's the only other thing I've ever done, and I've really loved to take people who are not introduced to the higher dimensions of that art and show them what it's all about. For 25 years, I was a tour guide, and I led people around Europe, and I developed a sense for how many Madonnas and children can a mortal tourist continue to enjoy, and how are people confused, and what helps bring to life the art that they're going to be seeing. And if you have a little background when you go into those great galleries or when you go into those great Gothic churches, it becomes an altogether different experience. I mean, before I take a group in to see a Gothic church, I build a Gothic cathedral out of 13 tourists. It takes 6 columns, 6 buttresses, and 1 spire. And then you realize why the pointed arch is important and why the walls become window holders. And you step inside that Gothic church, and it just makes so much more sense. So for decades, I've been teaching art, and now I get a chance to put it together in my books and in my new TV series, Rick Steves' Art of Europe.
See, and that's the part of the story that I love is that it's like you're the teacher, you're the archaeologist, you are the one that is saying there's a purpose and there's a reason. Now, what are you going to learn from it? You're asking us that, and you do it one step at a time.
You know, people wonder, how can I save a little money on this or that admission? And you really can't. You're going to pay about basically the same to get into these great museums when you travel. But when you bring some understanding to it, then it makes sense, and you get double the value out of it. And that's what's so exciting. So, you know, with my, I've been working for 2 years on this TV show, and we're just debuting this next couple of weeks all over the country. It's a 6-week series where I've distilled this whole sweep of the story of European art into 6 hours. And boy, you know, you can step into the Pantheon in Rome and understand you're stepping into the best preserved building from ancient Rome, where you the one building where you feel the magnificence and the splendor of ancient Rome. And you look at those columns, and they're 50 tons each. They were shipped there from Egypt 2,000 years ago, and you want to wonder, how did they do this? It takes 4 tourists to put their arms around one of these columns, and you learn how they had this Greek aesthetic, and how when they stepped inside, they mixed the Greek sort of approach to beauty, and they mixed Roman engineering. You see the bricks, and you see the arches built into the brick walls to give them more structure, and then you see that oculus in the top, 15 feet across, where you've got this incredible column of light coming in that 2,000 years ago connected people on Earth with the heavens, and in a lot of ways it still does today.
To step into that shock and wow moment. I mean, because first of all, when you see it, it moves through you, and then when the passerby gets to see it, I mean that becomes an experience they're going to carry with them for the rest of their lives. And it's always fun to sit down with people afterwards. It is a goal, isn't it?
Yeah, well, people scrimp and they save and they dream and they get their trip to Europe. And what I've been doing just all my career really is helping people get the most out of their travels. And I do it with my guidebooks. And after 2 years of COVID, we were really, really all hands on deck to get these guidebooks up to date and find out how Europe's doing after COVID. And with my art books, I've just written a book, during COVID called Europe's Top 100 Masterpieces, celebrating the greatest 100 pieces of art in Europe, in my experience. And now I'm so excited because we're just debuting this 6-hour art series. And, the whole idea is to help people get turned on by art. It's the most beautiful thing in your travels. And a lot of people go there because it's an obligation. When I was a kid, my mom said, you've got to go to the museums. It'd be a crime not to. And I went to these great art galleries, and I was surrounded by people looking like they were having fun, and I was convinced they were faking it. How could people enjoy this stuff? But if you just understand a little bit of the context, who paid for it and why, oh man, it comes to life, and that's what I'm really excited about. So I'm thankful to have public broadcasting to be my network, because we can sort of assume an attention span and respects people's intellect. And now we're just debuting this, what I think is going to be this generation's look at the story of European art. And so that's something that I've just been real thankful to do. I've got 100 people here on my staff in Seattle, and we take groups around Europe and write our guidebooks, and we make our TV shows. And our mission is to inspire people to get out there, to venture beyond Orlando, and to let your travels change your approach to things. That's kind of the Rick Steves approach to travel, and it's the Rick Steves approach to art.
You're out there in Seattle. I grew up in Billings, Montana. One of the things, one of its features in Billings are the pictorial caves where the Native Americans drew pictures on the walls. You have seen things like that around the world as well.
Oh, when you look at the prehistoric caves, in fact, the whole megalithic culture, all over Europe, you've got these huge stones. We know about Stonehenge, but
yes,
that's just the beginning. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And to wander through these celestial calendars made, 4,000 years ago, and imagine that this is how the old Celtic people knew when to party, when to plant, when to have their festivals according to where the sun would rise and where the sun would set. And it still rises and sets where it's supposed to. And, I'll never forget being in one of these megalithic tombs in Orkney, that's the islands north of Scotland, and, bending your head down and crawling through this passageway, yep, and realize for 4,000 years people have been doing that, and once a year the sun shines down that passageway, and what does it do? Does it take the person who's buried there's soul to heaven? Who knows what they were thinking back then? But these domes they were inspirational back then, and they're inspirational today. And to be able to take our camera in there and to be able to show that off, and then to go into greater domes through the ages. I mean, you've got your prehistoric domes, you've got your Pantheon in Rome, you've got your Brunelleschi's dome in Florence, you've got Michelangelo's dome, yes, at St. Peter's at the Vatican. And to stand into these domes and to just, part of my challenge in my books and in my tours and in our new TV show is to help people see the art in the context of the age. Don't look at it like it's in the 2020s. Mm-hmm. Look at it like it's 500 years ago when this really was the best they could do, and to understand, when you've got a divine monarch and when you don't know what thunderclapping in the sky means, and when you've never seen a moving image, and when you've got pilgrims walking for months to get to a spot, the jubilation when they finally see those spires on the horizon of where they're walking to. It's so exciting to be able to put yourself in that kind of mindset. And then the art, it just carbonates the experience.
You talk about the techniques of the artist and things like that. I like putting paint on a canvas, but when I go into a gallery or a museum, I like getting as close as they will allow, because I want to study the structure of their brushstrokes, because their brushes weren't as technical as they are today. I mean, we have a choice between brushes nowadays. Back then, it might not have been such a choice.
True. Well, at first they didn't even have oil paints. They had egg-based paint, yeah, tempera. And we went to a gallery in Florence in order to show how they did the tempera, the egg-based paints before they had oil. And then 500 years ago, with Leonardo and Raphael and those guys, you have all of a sudden the ability to paint with much more nuance. And then I totally agree with you that you step up close to the paintings and you look at the brush strokes. Yep. That was particularly true, I think, in the Impressionist times back in the 1880s. And so where they didn't mix the color on the palette, they dotted the paint side by side on the canvas, and then when you step back, it mixes sort of as it comes to you, and it gives it a special vibrancy. And, of course, you're not supposed to look at it up close, but if you look at it up close, you're looking behind the curtain. And then you stand back and voila, Monet, water lilies, yeah.
Oh, Rick, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, sir.
Well, thank you. And we've been working real hard on this, and right now, all over the country, Rick Steves' Art of Europe, it's debuting on public television, 6 hours to turn you on to the story of European art.
Oh, once again, you are a brilliant man for sharing the stories that you do, and you have heard your calling, and you're answering it.
Oh, I'm thankful to have found my niche, and I'm thankful to talk to you and to be able to share this with your listeners.